crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
Holy
the thing is,
Priest.
these players are so good at everything, and they have so many different specs that they enjoy and can play. So if there's ever something like Prot Paladin, Echo will certainly be like, okay, can we make that work, right? Is this something we can adapt? And if the answer is yes, they will be happy to play it as well on fairly short notice. So let's see if that's what they've got for us.
That's right. Game number 1 is going to be here in Theater of Pain. Of course, this is going to be our Group C finals. So both Incarnation and Echo have qualified for our globals, and now they're going to be fighting for the lion's share of the prize pool, as well as some more favorable seeding as we enter, of course, the global final season. So let's see what they got for us as Incarn and Echo are squaring off right now. Let's get it going.
All right, let's take a look. No Prot Paladin from Echo. They are sticking to that Prot Warrior, full melee physical damage comp, as Incarnation has Dorky on that Prot Paladin, and of course we have that Arms Warrior as well on Cryptics. Both of them doing a pretty big pull at the start, pulling a bunch of ads on top of the boss. Looks like Echo did only pull that Blackthorn though, while Incarnation did pull the rest of the trash too, if I'm not mistaken.
And man, it's just so crazy to me that Incarnation have kind of converged on this Arms Warrior pick, which is such a strong pick in this dungeon in particular. The overall damage it can put out is so strong. And I mean, you can see across the board it's going to be a little different because Incarnation did pull more trash like you mentioned, but it's because they have the option of going for that massive AoE burst with the comp they run. Now, there are still distinct advantages in Echo's comp. They will have much better focus damage with that sub-rogue on their squad, but should Incarnation choose to go for much bigger pulls, which I would guess they'd be going for since they do have a potential extremely fast time, a minute faster than we've seen this weekend, they have the comp to run it. This massive AoE blitz down that they have with the Hunter, Warrior, Monk combo is insane.
Yeah, definitely a really cool strat coming out of Incarnation. Echo seemingly having more boss damage though. Keep in mind they also pulled a little bit less trash, so they were able to focus the bosses quite a bit more. They're gonna have to make up for the trash somewhere else unless they choose to pull the trash into the last boss at the very end. We'll see what their strategy is, as they're now Incarnation getting down the boss too. Only a 6 seconds differential between the two teams, even though Incarnation did get those 5% extra trash. So I would say 6 seconds extra to get 5% more trash, definitely worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to mention as well, Incarnation's comp kind of lends them to let them do big more pulls, especially considering the necrotic affix, right? 2 paladins, I mean, twice as much necrotic removal, right? Not to mention that Dorky is also playing Carrion, so he has that file to remove necrotic stacks. There's just so many tools that they have to go big back to back and make sure necrotic is not an issue whatsoever. And this is one of the things that they can do on necrotic that Echo is going to have a tough time doing. They can opt to pull these Shackled Souls into Execution of Varuth and have their tank not worry about taking too many necrotic stacks. Yes, those are going to stack up, but they have so many tools available to remove them.
Yeah, it looks like this is a crazy pull, but it took them actually quite a long time to get Varuth into those Shackled Souls. Echo is already done with Varuth now, so they're going to be able to gather up the next pull quicker, but they're going to have to make up for those Shackled Souls that Incarnation is dealing with while fighting Varuth here. And one more thing to note is that Prot Paladin is actually really good at helping with off-healing. So having that Holy Paladin, whenever you're down on cooldowns, whenever you don't have that Ashen ready, then the Prot Paladin, Dorky, can help out so much with healing. And we saw Dorky actually out-heal Yuumi on that Holy Paladin on that pull just now. So definitely lots of utility coming out of the Prot Pala. Echo now gathering up that Incinerator with the Portal Guardian and all of those Shackled Souls that they still had to do from the previous pull. Incarnation doing the same thing, just needing to do a little bit less Shackled Souls because of that pull earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really good for Incarnation right now, right? They're pretty much on the same pull at the same state of the dungeon as Echo, but they just have roughly 8 to 9% extra trash percentage on the board. And as we know from them running this dungeon earlier this week, the entire reason behind having that extra 8% or so trash is purely so they can skip one of the mini-bosses in the Duelist Quarter, saving them a ton of time over the course of the dungeon. I mean, one of those mobs takes 45-ish seconds to single target down if you're not efficiently cleaving it, so that is a big time save. But there's going to be a little bit of difference in strategy here. Echo opting to go for the Shackled Soul portal instead of going for the double Bone Mage that Incarnation's going for. So a little bit extra trash for
Yeah. Very interesting. That must be just a routing difference that Echo chose to go for. There must be some trash that they can skip maybe later on, and that's why they went to the left. It looked like both of them were dealing with it in a very similar amount of time, as both of the teams are going to be reaching that Portal Guardian platform at the exact same second, and both of them engaging that trash pull now. Echo actually using some CC here before they gather the trash. So they CC'd both of the mages, and now they're dropping that Ashen, while Incarnation is holding on to their Ashen on their side.
They held the Ashen, but still got through the pull first. They didn't pull 2 of the mages, so definitely a more safe option. But remember, they have the extra trash percentage from earlier, so that's not going to be an issue for them. They don't have to worry about killing those 2. And Incarnation, it just looks like they're in the lead. More trash percentage, getting to the next platform before Echo, and they also still have the Ashen available, which Echo don't. They're just, I mean, they're flat out in the lead right now.
Yeah, they definitely are. As they're gathering those mages now on top of that Bone Reaver, they need to make sure that they have all of that AoE interrupt available. Looks like they're doing a really good job. And they also have that Prot Paladin just helping out with those interrupts. It's just so good having all of those interrupts for these mages because they have so many dangerous casts, the Bone Spears, that if they go off, it very easily can one-shot that person. So now they're gathering up those last 2 Bone Mages as well. It looked like they didn't just quite manage to get them into the initial pull because they were maybe out of interrupts, but Echo looked like they were able to do so. So Echo caught up a little bit because they got all of the mages into the pull immediately.
Yeah, slight inefficiency for Incarnation. I think it was just a safety play opting to not pull those 2 mages in right away. That's one of the few ways you can wipe in this dungeon just due to missing interrupts. So just a safety play. They also might not have had enough purges to get rid of all the shields right away. Don't quote me on that. Yeah. That might be another reason. So just other possibilities out there. But because of the way that pull was designed for Incarnation, both teams are now neck and neck in progression. They're on the same platform. They're killing the same trash pack. Echo is ever so slightly ahead in terms of DPS, but again, Incarnation has a slight extra trash advantage. So very, very close, but I'd say very slight advantage for Incarnation currently.
Yeah, very interesting because Yuumi is still holding on to that Ashen. He's been holding on to this for quite a long time. There must be some pull that they intend on using it, or they just want to commit it to the boss. Because of course it is tyrannical, and having that extra damage really means a lot. While Zalia is not having the Ashen on Echo's side. So they still also have a lot of shackled souls left for Echo to pull. So that means that's probably going to slow them down a little bit because Incarnation can just fully DPS the boss without having to worry about any of those shackled souls whatsoever. They already dealt with all of them. As Echo is slowly pulling them in, they're actually pulling a lot of them all at once. This is pretty scary because you have the boss doing so much damage to the group, and then on top of that you have 5 shackled souls you have to deal with as well.
Well, it actually looks like Echo is just not focusing the Shackled Souls whatsoever. They're just dying to purely passive cleave, and one of the benefits of this is that they're getting a ton of focused single target funnel on the sub-rogue. Look at Fragments on the meters there. He is completely pumping right now. Most of that is single target damage. They're getting so much funnel that they're keeping up on boss damage with Incarnation, and Zalia didn't have Ashen Hollow. That is wild.
Yeah, that actually really caught them up quite a bit. They're still behind though, as Incarnation with that Ashen just making up quite a lot of time. That means though that Echo, if they decide to do a big pull after this and commit the Ashen there, then they might be dealing with that pull quicker than Incarnation again, right? So there's definitely a back and forth between those 2 teams. And Echo seemingly caught up on trash a little bit as well, because keep in mind, after the first boss, they were 5% behind because they didn't pull those 3 casters at the start of the dungeon, while Incarnation did, and now they're only 1% behind. So they did pull some extra trash throughout this wing, and they also went to the left side instead of the right, going to this to the Shackled Souls instead of the Bone Mages, and get a little bit of extra count there as well. Now it looks like Incarnation is finishing off the boss a couple of seconds earlier though, but Echo definitely not far behind.
And I mean, look at the strength of the Arms Warrior there. Just absolutely cranking the single target damage. And they didn't pull any Shackled Souls, right? That is pure single target blast coming out from Cryptics there on the Arms Warrior. Love to see that. But yeah, Echo keeping themselves in this by abusing the funnel from the Subtlety Rogue. I love seeing the different advantages that the teams gain from their comp differences, but this is going to be an area where Echo will have a lot more stability. Incarnation only has the wings from Growl on the Holy Paladin there, whereas Echo has the Ashen Wings combo available, and that'll help them blast down this pull and also keep them alive with passive healing from that Ashen Hollow.
Yeah, that's just a crazy pull that both of the teams are doing just there. You can see all of those mobs just need to be interrupted. So many dangerous casts. If they go off, it's either going to mean a full wipe, or everyone is going to have a huge disadvantage because they have that damage reduction on everybody. Looks like Incarnation is executing it pretty well, even though they didn't have that Ashen available from the Holy Paladin. But Echo, because of that Ashen, they were done with it just a couple of seconds quicker. You can see just how close it is between those two teams, as both of them are heading towards that Gourd Shop area.
I mean, this is what we live for in the MDI. Competition of two teams at the top of their game, playing perfectly, being at the same point in the dungeon, neck and neck. Who's gonna budge first? There are so many areas for mistakes to happen here, but we're differing again. We're differing slightly. Incarnation going for the invisibility past these mobs. Yes, those mobs spawn from the walls, but they're not going to worry about them. They're just going to go on ahead and pull these two mobs on top of the boss. Whereas Echo is going for the big AoE pull, but this is so scary. They don't have the Ashen or the wings available from Xaylia. It's going to be all down to personals, plus just whatever passive healing Xaylia can throw out here to deal with these mobs. Everything is dropping so incredibly low and now has no more resets for that Necrotic. He's going to have to kite it out. And with Gingy going down, one of their main AoE damage dealers is down for this pull. It's down to fragments and clicks to finish off this pack, and they're just going to be able to do it. But man, that was scary, and they used a lot there.
At the very start, they had a cast go off, and everyone had that 20% damage reduction plus healing reduction on them. They managed to use a lot of those defensives to get rid of it. They used Cloak of Shadows, Bubble, Turtle to get rid of it, but then Gingy went down after all. They lost a little bit of time there, but they are now ahead in trash percentage, of course, because Incarnation decided to skip that trash. They only dealt with the Butcher and the Horror that Echo also pulled into this boss. So Echo are going to be able to skip some trash after this boss. Incarnation has to do a little bit more, but you can see they're obviously ahead on the boss now. They also are committing the Ashen onto the boss, while Echo had to commit the Ashen onto this trash pull before.
I mean, the blows are just being exchanged left and right. It's a give and take here, right? Incarnation not going for the trash, but giving themselves a 30% advantage on the boss, on a tyrannical boss. That's a lot. It's just going to come down to a question of whether or not the Sub-Rogue versus the Arms Warrior here is going to help Echo catch up. Again, you can get a little bit of that funnel here off of those leftovers spawning during this boss, letting the Sub-Rogue do single target blast. But looks like the Monk and the Hunter are kind of taking that AoE pie away from him. They're not really letting him blast so much, and Incarnation is just catapulting themselves ahead. When I started what I was saying here, they were 30% ahead on the boss. They're now 40% ahead on the boss and have Gourd Chop dead.
Yeah, and they're done. They're on their way to the last wing, the Xav wing that they still have to do. They still need that 35% trash. Keep in mind, they still have 5% trash left at the very start of the dungeon. So that's something they can still do after. They can maybe even do it with more Dretha, with the last boss at the same time. That would be really, really efficient, because then they're just passively going to cleave it down. If Dorky can survive it, of course, having that Prop Warrior means that you're going to have a little bit more boss DPS on Mordretha, because you can spell reflect that tank mechanic that she's casting onto the tank. So that's going to be a little bit of an advantage for Echo, but a Dorky on that Paladin is going to have all of those interrupts and is going to be able to tank all of those assets they still have left there. Now they're pulling all of these Arbalists into that first mini-boss, and they're really blasting this. Look at the damage coming out of the Arms Warrior.
Yeah, I mean, short work of those mobs. There is still an Arbalist alive. They're going to want to finish that off before they decide to go pull any more, but this is the big strength of that Arms Warrior, pulling two of the mini-bosses together, allowing Cryptics to just fully abuse that Sweeping Strikes cleave. They are kind of pulling it late, so I wonder if this was just kind of like a safety thing for them, because usually when you see teams pull these two together, it's, you know, when the mobs have higher health, so you can really take advantage of this, the full two-target cleave, but just playing it safe there, finishing off the first one before they really start working on Harugia here.
Look at Echo, actually. Gingy immediately went and pulled Haruja while everyone else was fighting the first mini-boss and that trash pack. This is what they held their Ashen for. Because they didn't use it on Gourd Chop, Xaylia had it back up for this pull, and this is a pretty efficient one as they deal with two mini-bosses and that trash at the same time. And look at how fast they're dealing with this. But Incarnation, they're pulling Haruja on top of Rack. the third mini boss with the middle pack. The only captain being CC'd there in the middle of the bridge. That's so much trash that they're getting done here on Incarnation's side.
Is this enough trash to finish off their trash count? I believe this will get them to 100%.
I think so.
Or it'll get them to like 98%, and they can finish off the captain for the rest of their trash count. That was so efficient and so quick from Incarnation, pulling Haruja in over to Rek right away with the pack on the bridge as well. Just so quick. Echo still has the last mini boss to deal with, and Incarnation is already on Zav.
They have 95% trash. I'm not sure if they have to deal with any of this. Looks like Gingy is just going to pull it to the left side. They're going to go past this. Echo is done with trash as well. Incarnation, though, already on Zav. They're up to 98%. They only have this 2% left that they're going to be getting from either the captain or the trash that you still have left at the start of the entrance. They can pick and choose whatever they want to do to get the last percent. It's definitely going to be efficient for them. Now, Echo did manage to reach Xav as well, and Incarnation committed their Bloodlust for this. You can see their Bloodlust is on cooldown now. They used it, even though the Ashen wasn't just back up yet for Yuumi. So we'll see if he's going to be popping it in just a second while the last is still running. And there we go. Yuumi Growl is committing the last and the wings there, while Echo is holding on to the last. The Ashen still being down for Zalia. And you can see Incarnation really pulling ahead on that boss, as they also pulled it a couple of seconds earlier. And that 20% that they're ahead on that tyrannical Xav fight, that means quite a lot.
I mean, the gap's going to open up even more because we have to wait for Echo's duel to be finished. They're probably going to open that gap up to about 30 seconds by the time Clix and Gingy get back up here. And yeah, look at that. I mean, 25% now. It's going to keep going up. And I think it makes sense for them to pop their Bloodlust here, right? They don't have to pull the trash on top of Mordretha like Echo does. And on top of that, popping your Bloodlust here affords you the damage to actually skip the second duel. One of the biggest pain points in this dungeon for a lot of the teams in Theater of Pain has been having to deal with Soggodon the Breaker just looming down there when players are sent down for a duel. There's so many times where people have been sent down for a duel and accidentally engaged Soggodon, which pretty much just instantly results in a team wipe if you don't have a Shadow Meld or combat drop available to get him out of combat with you. So skipping the second duel is such a clutch reaction there by using the Bloodlust, and it's just a big safety play, and I love it a lot. But this dungeon is pretty much going to come down to how fast Echo is going to be able to deal with the AoE, and also how they're going to be able to use that AoE to funnel single target out of fragments here. Because, I mean, looking at the way the dungeon is right now, both teams are just now getting up to Mordretha, and it's just going to be a DPS race. Incarnation does have the advantage, however, of having somebody who has already spawned Mordretha, whereas Echo is just finishing off Zav and doesn't really have anything to do while the RP is starting. So Incarnation is going to pull Mordretha here about 20 seconds before Echo.
Yeah, all eyes on Incarnation. They don't have the Ashen, they don't have the Bloodlust, but they're pulling the boss so much earlier. That should be enough. Gonna be hard for Echo to make up that time, even though they do have those offensive cooldowns available. And you can see Incarnation is just blasting the boss. Cryptic's doing so much damage here, even without those, without that Bloodlust available. And you can see the boss is just dropping and dropping. They have the three Tormentor debuffs, no, two, sorry. They have the physical damage increase and the 50% slow, which can be a bit unlucky if that portal spawns close to you, but it looks like they're just fine.
But watch out, here comes Echo. Mordretha has been engaged, the Bloodlust is popped, the Ashen Hollow is down, the funnel is coming out from the Hunters and Rogues, and look at them chew into that 30% boss health advantage that Incarnation had, already down to just 12 or 13%. I mean, Echo is hot on their heels, down below 5% now. It's going to come down to just a pure DPS race now as both teams are entering that 50% transition at the exact same time, and Echo is actually now even pulled ahead. Absolutely nuts. But does Incarnation have the damage coming up? Are their cooldowns coming back up? The True Shot just now popped for Yoda, and they'll now catapult themselves ahead as well. This is just neck and neck, Nagura.
This is so incredibly close, and you have to keep in mind there's 5 seconds death penalty on the side of Echo because Gingy had died earlier. So Cryptix goes down too, never mind me, there's no death differential anymore. Now it's all down to the timer, both having the same amount of death penalties, so the time's completely even. And you can see Echo actually pulling ahead at this point because of the death of Incarnation, and Mordretha is just dropping and dropping for Echo. It seems like they're gonna be the ones pulling it off. There we go, Mordretha going down. It actually is Echo clutching it out at the very end. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Just look at how tight the competition is between these two teams. That one death on the side of Incarnation, and Echo just absolutely shreds through Mordretha. You could really see just the incredible amount of damage that those prot warriors are able to deal to that last boss. I wonder on that one, Dranos, if Cryptic still had aggro or something. I'm trying to like taunt to be able to get the spell reflect off for the tank mechanic or something. How did he die there?
Maybe, yeah, it was kind of hard to tell. That's definitely something he was doing during this fight, was taunt spell reflecting. It's a lot of extra DPS that, you know, if you want that spell reflect damage and your tank's not a prot warrior, that's how you got to get it. Whereas, of course, on the side of Echo, now is just able to do every other Reaping Scythe by himself with his own spell reflect. So adding a lot of damage, but ends up potentially costing it there for Incarnation right at the end. 13 seconds separating our teams. Wow, what a close game.
Yeah, it's just absolutely insane. And let's start talking about where these teams started edging ahead of each other as well. Dratnos, what do you got for us?
Yeah, all right, so let's take a look at some of the things that went on here. Of course, I think a great point to differentiate the teams was how they handled Kultharak. You could see the way, as Zyra mentioned, this is a single target blaster comp that Incarnation's using. Look at Dorky just doing 7,000 pure single target DPS, and all three of their DPS players doing huge amounts as well. Whereas, of course, over on the side of Echo, Echo's damage meters here, you can see a lot higher numbers. That's because they pulled in a bunch of adds onto this. So their single target's actually a little bit lower here, but they are able to leverage that that comp they have by gaining time off of doing percent during the bosses, gaining funnel damage out of the Subtlety Rogue. This pull that Echo does is so sketchy, and you actually see it does cost them their one death of the run here, but still a pull that gets you a lot of count. Incarnation opts to just not do this one. They say, you know what, we're not interested in fighting all these things. We will find some other count in other spots in the dungeon, because look how hectic that was. And then, of course, very end of the dungeon, this is a spot that on pull on the boss, right? Incarnation gets here quite a ways ahead of where Echo are at, but even still, and there's even still. Yeah, despite a huge amount of opening burst on the boss, right? Look at all the damage that everybody in the group is doing. And despite those taunt spell reflects out of Cryptics, you can see, you know, they end up getting this boss here. And I think we're going to be able to see the death here, which I didn't exactly catch how it happened. But okay, it looks like it was it was not an aggro thing at all. It was a brutal combination of the frontal and the charge mobs. Really reducing the amount of space left in the room. And you know what? If that hadn't happened, I think we would probably had a game that was maybe 2 seconds difference between the teams.
Yeah, and just the fact that it can come down to that close of just margins, it just goes to show how amazing these competitors are. And I don't even think we've been having this close of games in quite a while either, Zyro. Just insane.
I mean, these are the games that, like, get the blood pumping and the adrenaline flowing. Like, even as a caster, right, just watching it, it's like, I love this. When two teams are playing so well and are playing so close to each other, just you get to watch for the tiny little minute details to figure out what teams are doing to give themselves an advantage. And I think this is one of those dungeons where, like, teams can actually opt to go for different trash, you know, configurations and different cooldown timings. And it was, like, just so cool to see Echo just be like, oh, we're 30% behind on the boss. All right, less dashing. What's up? We're at the same boss percentage now. 10 seconds later. It was nuts. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah, I was specifically watching Gingy there, Nagura, just to see when he would actually go look, you know, to the side of his monitor to see if, you know, where his other opponents were and everything like that, and see if he could actually find out, like, how close that matchup really was.
Yeah, it's great to see the player cam reactions when they realize just how close it is. And next up, I mean, it's not just over yet for Echo, as they have to play that 22 miss of Tirna Scythe now, which both of the teams already have competed against previously in that semi-final, and Incarnation won. Echo had 10 deaths, as they had a bunch of mistakes there. And not only did they have mistakes in their match against Incarnation, they already had a lot of mistakes against Outcast in their very first game, where they also almost had a full team wipe. So Miss definitely not their best dungeon, at least not this weekend.
Yeah, this was the dungeon that Incarn sent Echo down into the Shadow Realm, so we'll have to see if Incarn's going to be able to do it again here. And it's just the execution is just so crazy important as well, Dratnos. We, you know, for some reason, Mist has just been like Echo's kryptonite lately.
Yeah, Mist and Tirna Scythe, you know, this is a dungeon that there's, in theory, it's kind of on rails, right? There's not any of these massive scary pulls, but in practice, the way that this dungeon gets done, particularly at the end, you have these pulls where it's just like, oh, let's just do all the trash at the end of the dungeon all at once, you know? Why not?
And then when they realize that they're a little bit behind, the pressure just mounts further and further, that they need to take additional risks, and then it becomes something that they're like, well, we don't have as much practice onto this, or it becomes a lot easier for small deaths here and there to happen, and if you don't have the damage to be able to blow up everything, it just leads to these pulls taking longer, more people dying, and threats abound.
Yeah, it's definitely one of these dungeons as well where, you know, even if Echo ends up losing the Mists, I think they've got to be so happy that they got that theater on their side, because the Sanguine Depths, I feel like, is a pretty Echo happy place, right? Like it's a pretty sad place for the prisoners stuck in the Sanguine Depths and everything. But Echo just love being in Sanguine Depths. That is a place where they show up and they just keep winning maps across the entire Shadowlands MDI history. They continue to dominate in that dungeon in particular. So I think that they are aiming to. I mean, obviously they would love to end this series right now, but I think that that is a great backup plan for them if this one goes Incarnation's way again.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most interesting things to look at, is just how much some teams, regardless of the seasonal affixes and the class changes and everything that can go on in between seasons, Nugra, like the really tight affinity that they have with this dungeon. They just say, we love this place. We just want to do every single game we can in here. You know, you're not locked in here with me, you know, or I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've seen in the past, in the previous seasons, where some dungeons are just like made for a certain team. Like they're just so good at that dungeon, and they're like basically can't be beaten there. And I think we can't really establish that too much in this season, because every team only plays one weekend, right? So there definitely is a little bit of a difference here. But Sanguine Depths is still just from season 1. It's just what Echo can do. And Mist seems to be a dungeon that is really going in favor of Incarnation. They seem to be really good at that dungeon, having 0 deaths in both of their runs. And I just generally want to talk about how consistent Incarnation is too, because they're competing in this speedrunning MDI for the first time, and they have so few deaths throughout all of their dungeons. It's actually incredible. They have so many dungeons where they have 0 deaths, and then some dungeons where they have like 1 or 2. It's actually incredible.
Yeah, for most teams, MDI pulls are way more ambitious than anything you'd ever do on the live servers. For Incarnation, this is they show up in the MDI and it's like, oh, we're only pulling 3 packs at once?
Yeah.
You know, Dorky usually makes us pull all 5 of these in live. This is nice. This is a balmy, relaxing time in Mists. So that might have something to do with why the pulls seem so safe for them.
Yeah, they just already went through the gauntlet already on the higher level keystones. You just love to be able to start seeing the team, you know, because we've talked about it. You know, there's a lot of similar skill sets between pushing keys or raiding and doing MDI, but when you apply it and you have to learn them, you know, we've seen a number of times, Zyro, where, you know, high-end raiders just have to take the time to learn all the ins and outs and intricacies of these little dungeons too. So having teams going into the MDI format and just being able to absolutely dominate in their first full season as a team together is just crazy to see.
I mean, I can't think of how many times in the past 3 years that we've been casting together that we've looked at a team coming into the MDI for the first time and been like, oh yeah, those are all like really good players. Oh, they're in this guild that's in the top 5 in the world, and they're this high on the Raider.io leaderboard. They should be pretty good. And then they just can't really compete with the top end teams. It's just so refreshing and so awesome to see a team that has all those accolades come into the MDI and just crush it. I mean, win or lose, Incarnation is going to be a contender in the Global Finals if this is the way that they're going to continue to play, and it's really cool to see.
That's right, win or lose.
And I actually just checked. I actually just checked that Incarnation only had 4 deaths in total throughout this whole weekend.
In their entire
Yes,
MDI
and,
career, they've had 4 deaths.
Exactly.
True.
There you go. There you
Echo
go.
has 14 deaths in Mists alone.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh boy.
And they have hundreds over their whole MDI career.
Yeah, hundreds.
I'd say dozens.
Checkmate, Echo.
Checkmate.
Oh my goodness. Well, game number 2 is almost ready to get going. Echo is currently up 1, just barely taking that Theater of Pain from Incarnation. This is also the dungeon that Incarnation sent Echo down to the lower bracket here, and they want to be able to even out the series in this one. Mist of Tirna Scythe is ready to roll here in our grand finals.
All right, well, we're going to see that rematch one more time. Let's see if Echo managed to clean up those mistakes that we've seen them do twice already in that Mists. Incarnation, we know they have a really good strategy, and they're especially clean in this dungeon. 0 deaths in both of the runs that they had previously, and if neither of the teams make mistakes, then I think it's going to be incredibly close, just like the Theater of Pain we just saw.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple benchmarks along the way from the matchup that we saw between these two teams earlier in this dungeon that we know we can hit. Echo was ever so slightly ahead pretty much the entire time until we got to Mistcaller. Incarnation, the way that they deal with Mistcaller, the way that they deal with the trash amount Mistcaller, gains them so much time, and then they just go giant on their pulls after Mistcaller. They go for those bear pulls, as we like to call them on live, just dorky things, just pulling the entire dungeon all at once for no reason other than just for fun and to piss his healer off. So let's see if that's going to be the trend here. Echo again, both teams going for that massive pull, both bow breakers plus the 4-pack plus the incinerator. This went clean for both teams last time, but that doesn't mean there can be mistakes this time around. This is a very, very scary pull. Infernos need to be kicked, and once those bow breakers start thrashing, they need to get into that room. They need to click the mushrooms to full heal themselves so their healer can just keep blasting.
Yeah, Incarnation had a little bit of an issue last time on this pull because it took them a while longer to finish this off because their Moonkin needs to hold on to that cooldown because it's a 3-minute CD and they want it for the boss. So Yoda holding on to that Celestial Alignment, but it looks like Echo having some issues as well as everyone drops pretty low from that AoE from those bow breakers, but they picked up those mushrooms to fully heal themselves and get rid of the Grievous at the same time. So really well executed by Echo here. Incarnation as well, now moving into those mushrooms, are a bit slower on this trash pull, but that was already the case last time they played against each other, just because Echo, because of their setup, they're just having a slight bit more damage for this pull specifically.
Yeah, I mean, they have a Moonkin that's not popping their cooldowns on their team. That alone is going to set you behind. And then on top of that,
Yeah.
Windwalker is just going to do more burst AoE than a mage is. That's just how it works, especially when you're only pulling that few targets. Mage needs a few more targets to ramp on before they can compete with the Windwalker AoE. So this is very similar to what we saw last time around. Echo pulling Ingram Malik maybe 10-15 seconds before Incarnation. All things are the same here. But remember, where Echo started having problems was when they got to the maze. They started having random spot deaths to frontals in bites from some of the mobs. So we'll see if they can keep it clean this time around. That's going to be the name of the game here. I think if Echo keeps this to a clean 0-death dungeon, they should be able to eke out themselves enough of an advantage to take this map.
Yeah, it looks like Echo again, cleaving a lot of damage onto Ingra here. You can see Ingra already down to below 90%. They're doing a lot of cleave damage, making sure they get her lower before the Droman goes to 20%, to make sure that they can one-face the boss. Incarnation, on the other hand, not actually focusing Ingra too much. They're really focusing the Droman a lot here. They do have those superior cooldowns, really, with that Celestial Alignment being so strong for this phase. Keep in mind, Yoda is playing Kyrian, though, and not Nightfire or Venthyr that we usually see from those druids. So gonna have a little bit less burst damage himself, but because he can buff Junkrat here, with the rogue cooldowns, they're really giving each other a lot of damage.
I mean, it seems like Echo's boss burst is so much better here last time around. I mean, I remember when Incarnation was done with their boss burst, Echo still had 5 or 6% on the boss last time around, but this time, by the time Incarnation's done with their boss burst, Echo is already pulling the trash. They're already on Varut, so Echo just going that much faster this time around in this dungeon. The difference is going to be about 30 seconds on the first boss here.
Yeah, and now we can see the difference in struts. We know that Echo is pulling the Ruth by himself until the mini boss is like 70%, and then they pull it into this trash pack, the middle 2 defenders plus the right side trash. While Incarnation is skipping the Ruth at first, dealing with the defenders and the right side trash, and then they're gonna be moving the Ruth into the next trash pack from the next maze area, which I think is slightly faster from Incarnation's side. But Echo doing a really good job finishing off the trash. You can see Varuth is staying up for a long time. They're just passively cleaving him down.
Yeah, just because of the way that Incarnation has to round up those ads, those ads are just now coming into the pull, whereas for Echo, they've had them in there the entire time they were cleaving Varuth down. So it's just a little bit of inconsistency. Now the thing is, Echo have dealt with her. Like you mentioned, they deal with him first and then they finish off the trash after passive cleaving while dealing with Varuth. So the advantage is definitely on Echo's side now. They've fully dealt with that trash pack. They are going to be going through the maze, while Incarnation still have to finish off this trash pack, still have to pull Varuth and go through the maze, and they'll have to deal with Varuth while they're in this trash pack. The added advantage of that, though, is they actually get to have the Ashen Hall in the wings here, like you also mentioned. They get to blast and not have to worry about doing pure single target damage. They can just full on blast here while the Ashen Hollow passively heals them up, even through that healing function.
Yeah, it looks like Gingy did manage to get his pet over to the right side and they're getting the trash in. But unfortunately, you can see the marker that is already down, that cross marker for Echo. That is going to be the path that they're going to afterwards. So that means that the trash that they just pulled, they would have done that anyway. So they didn't really get extra trash. They just managed to get it into one pull instead of having it in 2 pulls. But they're still gonna have to find the exit of the maze afterwards, so still losing a couple of seconds there to find that exit. Incarnation doing a smaller pull on their side. Keep in mind they also only have those trees from their Moonkin to get the trash through the walls, so the Hunter just having an easier time getting all of the trash gathered. We know from before that they have less trash percentage on the second boss, while Echo is gonna have a lot more trash. So Incarnation needs to do more trash pulls after the second boss, but they really executed that really well last time. They had a really good strategy, and they pulled a lot of trash onto the last boss too. That seemed very efficient on their side.
I mean, if they can pull off that trash pull with the final boss with the bigger advantage they've secured for themselves here, they will no doubt take this miss on Incarnation. I mean, they were actually just on the heels of Incarnation in that miss last time around, and if they actually were able to pull that off, it would have been extremely close at the end. So, I mean, they're playing so much better this time around, but this is the pull where things started going south for Echo last time around. Of course, they had the Gorge Golem last time instead of the Dragon, but whenever they were dealing with their mini-boss and they pulled trash on top of it, that is where we saw deaths from both Gingy and Click. So let's see, with the different mini-boss, with different trash, if they're able to pull off this time with no major issues.
Yeah, looks like they're now getting in some extra packs into that Matriarch, but you can see Incarnation is a full maze location behind. They still have to deal with this current trash pack before they even get to the Matriarch. So in current, even though the percentage is the same on the board, Incarnation is just behind in the dungeon position. They did get some extra trash on the side, but look how late that trash pack actually came in. The first trash pack that they were fighting is already almost down. So not incredibly efficient on Incarnation's side because it just took so long to get the trash in. Echo, though, they're trying to just cleave down this pack evenly. Presumably, Fragnance is single targeting that Matriarch, but it looks like a lot of heal just went off on this trash pack because the Matriarch is putting that healing stone on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing you have to watch out for with the Matriarch. It can heal itself with that pull, not only itself, but everything else, including the trash, including the players. So really have to keep an eye out for that. Make sure you aren't kiting into that. It's pretty much just a healing Sanguine for everything. And yeah, I mean, this is really obscure and not what we've seen in either of Incarnation's runs of Mists earlier this weekend. Incarnation, actually, at the point in the dungeon they're at, have more trash percentage than Echo did, which is very weird because they were consistently, 6, 10, 15% or so behind every team they've faced in this dungeon. They haven't been the team that's been pulling all the trash through the walls, through the doors. And I wonder if that's going to just throw a wrench in their plans later on, because we know that they like pulling a ton of trash on top of the boss. I guess they do still have that extra trash pull that they do after the final boss, which they might not have to do this time around because they have the extra percentage. But I'm curious to see how that's going to shift up the routing.
Yeah, very interesting. And it looked like Echo was having something really weird happening to them, as they were only fighting a single tender until they got some extra trash on the side in. Not sure what happened, that there was only a tender left there. But Echo now did engage Mistcaller. You can see they're at 60%. Yumi going down for Incarnation actually at the very end of their trash pull. They did manage to get a battle rest off. That was actually a pure time save because you did not need to battle rest there as the trash was already done. But they know just how close this is against Echo, so they did commit that battle rest. The next one is going to come up in just a second for them. And you can see Echo, Salia, both Yumi and Sally have that Ashen ready. We're going to see where they commit that cooldown for. I believe Salia is saving it for that trash pull that they're going to do in just a second on top of the boss.
Yeah, they wait for this first intermission phase, deal with the first intermission phase as add. That is when Gingy goes and pulls trash through the wall. You can see him sending his pet go-getter right now. And now that the boss is attackable and taking full damage once that clone goes down, that's when we'll see the Ashen Wings combo come out and cleave it down. Now, the Wings isn't up quite yet for Xaylia, so I wonder if he's going to save it for a little bit more of an efficient one, or if he's just going to pop it right now. Yep, there it goes, just to make sure the team is safe when they pull in these adds, make sure they have that passive healing. While we've been talking about this, though, Incarnation has dealt with the trash that they were dealing with. They are now on to Mistcaller, and they've pulled the trash right away, not opting to save it. The Ashen Hall and the Wings are out from Growl right now, and they're going to be able to blast this trash down, and they're going to start slowly catching up to Echo. But Echo is already halfway through the boss ahead of Incarnation. I feel like this is like a mirror of what we've seen from Incarnation every other time. They've always been the team that has less trash at this boss. They've always been the team that's ahead on the boss. I mean, they just seem like they're behind in dungeon progression right now.
Yeah, this is actually the complete opposite situation of what we had last time, right? When they played against each other. Echo was first on the boss, but they had less percentage, and Incarnation now having had more percentage, and now Incarnation the opposite. They're on the boss later, but they have more percent. So very interesting difference here between the routing of the teams. You can see Mistcaller is dropping low. We'll see if Echo can skip that last guessing game. It's a crucial timing that they're gonna have to hit. You can see guessing game is starting to cast. They won't actually make it. So if Incarnation can skip their last guessing game, then that might be actually making up quite a bit of time for them. But yeah, it looks like Echo has to go through one last ad phase here before they can finish off the boss.
I mean, I almost feel like that's what Incarnation has to do to be able to come back in this game, is to find a way to skip that intermission phase. Otherwise, they're just going to be so far behind Echo going into this last section of the dungeon. And remember,
they have so much more trash.
They do have 9% more trash, but this is the same position that Incarnation has themselves in. They usually have less trash, but they go for the big pull. They deal with it efficiently, and they're able to get to the boss first with trash. I mean, that's what Echo is about to do right now. I would be very surprised if we don't see Echo go for that exact same triple trash pull that we saw Incarnation do earlier today.
Now somehow it's taking a lot of fall damage as he jumped down from that platform. So they want to make sure they get him healed up a little bit before they go into this trash pool. Looks like Incarnation did not manage to skip the last guessing game, so they're not going to be able to make up that time that Echo lost as well. And now they're gathering up for this big pool. 3 packs plus the Reavers all on top of each other. They're gonna have to use a lot of interrupts here to make sure they don't get any of those heals off, and they don't get any of those shields off as well. Looks like all of the Staghorns are marked, so they should be able to interrupt that. And they also have more interrupts on Echo's side compared to Incarnation, right? Because Incarnation has that Moonkin with that really long Solar Beam interrupt, 1 minute cooldown, and that Solar Beam does not hit multiple Staghorns. It only goes on one single one, and it also doesn't silence for the full duration. It only does the initial interrupt, so definitely a little bit of an advantage for Echo having those extra interrupts, but Incarnation has that Volcanic Plume trait they're going for in this dungeon.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, that wasn't a triple pull from Echo, which is kind of surprising. Like, they're just setting themselves behind a little bit by not going for that, because you know that Incarnation are very likely going to go for that. They've been going for it the entire time. What Echo didn't do is they didn't go for that right pack that Incarnation pulls in. But if I'm not mistaken, it looks like Incarnation aren't going for it either. Maybe that's just a route mix-up because they got the extra trash in the maze compared to what they normally have. They're also making sure to not get the Reavers. You can see that Yoda on the side there just hibernated the Reaver in place so that it wouldn't patrol into them while they're dealing with this trash pack. And man, this is all going to come down to whether or not Incarnation is able to gain a ton of boss damage from pulling the trash on top of the boss at the start of the pull like we know they do. Echo isn't going to be pulling that trash back in for just a little while longer here, but it just seems like they're so far ahead right now. That boss is going to be 20 or 30% lower when Incarnation even begins to pull it. That's just so much health to chew through, and it's not a fortified boss too, right? I mean, the boss doesn't have that much HP. Half HP on the boss in fortified is like not a lot.
Yeah, I do wonder though, because Echo, in the first time they played this dungeon, they had finished the boss by itself, and then afterwards they went for this trash pull. But earlier when I played against Incarnation, they pulled the trash on top of the boss. And it almost seemed like it was a Hail Mary kind of pull because they were pretty behind and they almost seemed to be forced to pull that trash on top of the boss to be able to beat Incarnation. But then they wiped to that exact pull. So it seems to be a very difficult pull to do. And now actually goes down on Echo's side as they pulled the trash into that boss. And everyone is using their immunities, trying to get now back up. Now is back alive, but Zalia goes down now. We do have another battle rest available, but they are out of immunities. I'm not sure if we can get the rest off with all of those trash packs in, and they're trying to just get the rest of the healer. All of those Tormentor debuffs that they have on them with the physical damage increase and the 50% slow. Click's going down too. They're trying to recover. Zalia is now back alive, but they're out of defenses at this point, and they don't have another battle rest available for Clicks, and Tredova is still on 30%. Incarnation is catching up so much at this point. They have no mistakes on their side, and they only need a 4% trash. Everything's just falling apart for Echo again.
Again, Echo just not able to make the pull on top of Tredova work. Incarnation not out of the woods just yet either. The Grievous is stacking across their entire team, and you can see for them the immunities are coming out, the Ice Block is out, the Cloak of Shadows is out to try to help their healer with the Grievous healing. They were able to get through the trash just in time. Growl was out of Ashen Hollow healing. His wings was gone. He was just struggling to get his team topped, but with the use of the immunities, they are back in business here. Everyone is topped up. They have 100% trash. They have Tredova at 25% here, and with that full wipe from Echo here, we're going to be going to a Game 3, Nagura. There is no shot Incarnation have any idea how to wipe to the boss from this point.
Yeah, I mean, Incarnation somehow... That strat that Echo is trying to do, it just seems to be so risky. They've attempted to do this twice, and both times they fully wiped to it. It's just so difficult to pull off. Incarnation having a little bit of a smaller pull on top of the boss, and they have no issues with that whatsoever. They're executing it so well with the comp they're running, and Tredova goes down. Incarnation is going to be evening out that series, and we're going to go to Game 3.
That's right, Incarnation coming from behind. Echo still not able to just perfect their missed runs as they fall to Tredova. And we're going to be going to a Game 3 here, Dranos.
Ho ho ho, yes we are. And for the second game in a row, the team that pulled the boss like 30 seconds before the other team ended up losing the map as well. What a crazy, crazy series we are watching unfold before our very eyes.
Yeah, it just goes to show, especially on this weekend, teams and their struggles just kind of continue. You know, we start seeing that really close affinity to some dungeons that they're able to make corrections on, and others they're just not. And unfortunately, the end of Echo's missed runs have just always been filled with disaster thus far. Stratus, just take us through this one. How did that even begin to happen in the last boss?
Yeah, so Echo started hitting the gas early in this dungeon. Their damage on this first boss is just so phenomenal. Here's a look at Incarnation working on that boss, and you can see Incarnation only able to get the boss down around that 13% range, and they have this agonizing then push to actually finish killing the boss after that damage reduction is removed. Whereas on the side of Echo, they just hit the gas here. Every cooldown, Brawn procs, perfectly calculated, of course, to come out right during the damage phase as well. And they just, I mean, look at the DPS that all three of their DPS players are doing. Just absurd. They get the boss down to like 2% before it loses the damage reduction. So they save so much time there. Here's a bit of trouble that Incarnation had during the maze. You could see Yummy Pala just under a tremendous amount of attack here, I think gets bitten. But look at this thing Junkrat does. So this was the room where they had the mini-boss. And so once you actually kill the mini-boss, even though they had other trash they were in combat with, they were able to vanish. Junkrat was able to vanish and go through the wall to get started in the next pull. So they were able to keep on moving because they had killed the mob that was actually in that room and bring the rest of that trash pull with them. So a nice little bit of tech to save some time. Here's where Echo ends up wiping. Now goes down. Zalia then has threat. And they actually were able to recover for like 30 seconds here. You could see just barely trying to survive. Players going down left and right, and they just barely couldn't bring it back. But it was so close to being recovered. I mean, for a while there, I actually thought they were going to get this thing back under control. Now it's just doing such a great job of miraculously staying alive, but it did not come to pass. Echo ends up going down on that series, and that means we are tied 1-1 going into a decisive Game 3 for the championship of Group C.
That's right. Credit to Echo and the whole team as well for keeping that going as long as they could. It's not just one person that goes into those kind of roles. Everybody prioritizing their own survivability. Big credit, of course, to Zalier from that healer perspective, of course, doing everything that he can. But you're not going to get anywhere if your team isn't doing everything they can to use their immunities, their defenses. We saw Clix just kiting out the whole mess of enemies all at once, all together to try to stay alive. So, unfortunately, wasn't quite enough for them, but that does mean, Nagura, we're going to Game 3, where Sanguine Depths will be our decider.
This is...
we talked about this, right? Yeah, we talked about Sanguine Depths being that Echo dungeon. We haven't seen Incarnation play Sanguine Depths at all this weekend. But keep in mind, Incarnation won against Echo in that semifinal earlier. That means they had a lot of time to prepare that Sanguine Depths and refine their strategy. And Incarnation knows how fast Echo is going because they already played that dungeon on broadcast with that 15 minutes 32 clear. But they almost lost against Reload Esports, actually. It was incredibly close. And if Reload Esports wouldn't have had mistakes and that death here and there, then I think Reload Esports would have even won against Echo. So if Incarnation looked at those two different strategies and is picking up the best of both routes, then I think there is a big chance for Incarnation to actually win against Echo here. I think this is going to be incredibly close.
Yeah, pay attention to that very first boss. If you see Incarnation pulling Incinerator successfully onto the first boss and Echo opting to not do that, that is going to be a big indicator that Incarnation, in fact, do have a blazing fast strategy. On the other hand, we might actually see Echo try and make that happen as well, right? Echo didn't do that in their match against Reload Esports, and I think it was pretty clear that, this is actually a really fast way to do this dungeon. And the thing about Echo, you can beat them with something faster than their strategy once, but when you see them in that dungeon the next time, they're going to be like, they're going to have taken that strat and then actually further improved on it, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, what? Now what am I supposed to do?
Every time.
Well, it's actually interesting that you bring that up because I was curious about that. After that Sanguine Depths, we saw them playing against Reload Esports earlier in the weekend, and I went and asked Miraz, is that intended? Did you guys just forget to pull Incinerator? He's like, no, that's on purpose. We do that to reset our cooldown so we can go for the big pull afterwards. So that seemed like it was slower from our perspective as casters. Now, we are just casters, we're not players.
Yeah.
But it just, you kind of get a feel for that being slower. So I wonder if that's something they went back to. They're like, wait, Reload played us incredibly close in that match. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board on that. On the other hand, Incarnation has been given the blueprint on how to play Echo Close in this dungeon by Reload Esports. So I feel like this is going to be a banger. I mean, this could go either way.
And especially because, if history serves as any sort of guide, there usually is a big advantage for teams to be in the grand finals first, go through the top of the bracket. It's not every single time, mind you, and you never want to count out a team like Echo at all, but when he's talking about the ability to practice and study up for a dungeon that we haven't seen from the Bear Squad at all, Nagura, it's certainly going to be nice, and you certainly got to know that they're going to be well prepared for this one.
Yeah, and I really wonder if they're going to show us any interesting comps as well for this, because we've kept talking about this Affliction Warlock, for example, but then Reload Esports and Echo didn't play Affliction Warlock, and they had this blazing fast times. So we kind of stopped talking about it because maybe it's not the best choice after all, but I still think it is really good for this dungeon. So that might be a possibility that Incarnation is looking into, or maybe just completely surprising us with a completely new comp that we have never seen before. Holy Priest?
If only, all right, if only. That'd be a wonderful way. No, trust me, it'd be a wonderful way to be able to finish up our bracket for the day. But, we'll see on this one. I think that this is very much Venthyr Paladin homeland, of course, with some of the pulls that they're able to put together here. The teams are getting themselves prepared. Of course, this is going to be our decider game between Incarnation and Echo, both of which have qualified for our global finals. Now to see who's going to take the top seeding. Let's get into it for the final game of the day. We got Incarnation and Echo in Sanguine Depths.
Wow, okay, so they actually do have an interesting comp. They keep playing the Moonkin. Very interesting. So I actually think that the Moonkin is a good choice for this dungeon as well. They're not having that Windwalker. So basically trading out the Windwalker for that, I believe, Kyrian Moonkin again.
Yeah, it's Kyrian. You can see it just now showing up the damage meter, playing the Kyrian again. So they must think that this is just a super solid option. The thing is their comp going to have enough pure AoE damage to keep up with the Windwalker on the side of Echo? I mean, that's going to be interesting. The Kyrian Moonkin has always been a question mark for us as casters, but whenever we look at the damage meters at the end of a dungeon, it's just always somehow up there, and it's just like, where is that damage coming from? It's not Vinthier. It doesn't compute. It's not even Night Fae. But checking it out already, first pull, Echo just pulling ahead with that superior AoE damage. But this is where we've seen teams like Reload Esports taking advantage over Echo. Is Incarnation going to pull Incinerator with this first pull here? Gotta keep an eye on it from behind. Is it being pulled? Junkrat staying behind to get that Tricks of the Trade out. Incinerator is aggroed. They are pulling it in on top of the boss. If Incarnation is going to pull this off, this will give them a significant advantage over Echo. This is not an easy pull, even with the Bloodlust, even with the Ashen Wings combo. There is a lot that can go wrong here, so let's keep an eye on this AoE blast here for both teams.
Yeah, it's taking so long for this Incinerator to actually walk into the pack because it just stops moving to cast spells, and it took a while to get there, and the Ashen was already down for a long time before the Incinerator came in, so they're losing a little bit on that Incinerator damage. But you can see Echo, without pulling that Incinerator, they managed to focus the boss quite a lot more, and you can see just how much lower the boss is dropping for Echo. But Incarnation now catching up as well, really quickly, as they somehow got their cooldown still running. The Bloodlust is still up as well, so they're just melting the boss too. And having that Tormentor done already means they can just move on into the rest of the dungeon right after this, while Echo has to go backwards and backtrack. And we keep talking about this backtracking in the MDI. That's just not something you want to do, because not only do you lose like the time to move back and forth, you also just lose that extra pull that you have to do afterwards. Incarnation just basically making up one whole pull at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's not that big of a deal, but it's a little tiny little advantage. Every single one of their players gets to snag a cool little tormented buff during the boss as well, which is also helping them make up that difference in the boss TPS, right? Incarnation was 10% or so boss TPS behind once Incinerator went down for them, but check that out. They've closed the gap. The bosses are going to die at roughly the exact same time. Yeah, they have 2% less trash, but Echo has to go back and deal with Incinerator right now, whereas Incarnation get to go in the correct direction, straight ahead in the dungeon. And if we know Dorky, we know what a bear pull looks like. Even though he's not on a bear, I'm fully expecting him to pull all of this straight to the Lantern, just like we saw from teams like Reload Sports, just like we saw from teams like Omega Pump. And yeah, there it is. Look at all that trash funneling in.
Yeah, this is an absolutely crazy pull. You got the Overseer, you got the Sentinel, you got all of the Oppressors, and even the small Rockbound Spites as well, but they're doing a huge amount of tank damage. And you can see that debuff stacking up on everyone, getting that damage reduction, and then the Overseer also casted those shackles that they had to get removed from. And then you see the Sentinel just casting those frontals that Dorky needs to deal with, but very well executed. You can see those stacks just ramping up on everyone. And Incarnation already done with that pull, and Echo just now is even getting there. At this point, I'm really doubting Echo and even Mirrors that they said that it's intended to not even do this pull. It really just seems like a superior strategy at this point. And I don't know what Incarnation is doing right now, but they're gathering up the mini-boss, the Ruth, the Warden, and more trash. This is an absolutely crazy pull. I don't know what's even going on.
Well, okay, what we normally see from most teams here is where Echo's at right now, they will do 2 major trash packs on top of that Lantern to get them a buff and extend the buff. Incarnation did the one big pull and just carried that buff through. It's not going great for them right now. Cryptix has procced his Pod Tinter. He's going to be healed through it, but that means he's not active to help them cleave these down. And if he's really unlucky, he might get hit by a frontal from Javelin as he comes out, who is still alive, but with Executioner down, most of the danger of the pull has gone down, but they've procced their cheat deaths across the board. There's no Pod Tender, there's no cheat death on the Rogue. They still have Javelin alive, but now they have 2 of their buffs, and I mean, that was a spicy pull, but they pulled it off with style there.
This is so incredibly efficient, but so scary, because this mini-boss has so much HP, and it gives so much percentage, but you're losing so much time if you have to deal with it by itself. And not only did they pull it with Varuth and more trash, but once they finish off the rest of the trash and the mini-boss was still alive, they just keep pulling it into the next pull. You can see it's still alive, that mini-boss. They're just dragging it along. Cryptic's going down, unfortunately, though. Yoda does get him back up. They have their druid to use that battle rest. They don't need to use that engineering rest to get him back up, so not losing too much time. But their warden is still alive, and Dorky's trying to cut us out because there's just so much incoming damage onto the tank. He even still has cheap death available too. Yummy does have the Ashen Hollow back up, so they could commit it, but it looks like they might be saving it for the boss at this point.
I mean, they're 100% saving that for the boss right now, and this is even so scary. As the bursting stacks start coming in, as trash goes down, Growl is just able to keep people alive, though nobody goes down to the bursting stacks. And keep an eye on that lantern. They still have it active. They're still gaining stacks. They're somehow, some way able to get through that absolutely ridiculous trash pull. And go back and only just now get their damage buff. But check it out, they still have the lantern on the right. They went left then right. We're so used to seeing teams go from right to left.
Yeah, this is a completely different strat. I really like this. They're just basically never out of combat. They just go from one pool into the next, just carrying along a bunch of mobs that they didn't manage to finish off, and it seems to be working out really well for them. Echo, though, they are on their heels. They did catch up on trash percentage a little bit, and you can see they're dragging a lot of trash on top of this right lantern. They might even be they might be even getting more trash percentage with this pull that they're doing right now in comparison to Incarnation. But Incarnation, they're going to be pulling the boss in just a second. Growl was holding on to this Ashen for so long. He's probably going to be... Actually, he might be saving it at this point for the third boss, because that's something we've seen by the other Holy Paladins. Because they don't have any other offensives available for the third boss, they are holding on to this Ashen. We'll see what Growl is going to do in just a second.
Yeah, I mean... Oh, they're just pulling more. Why not? You know, we can't extend our buff anymore. Are they There's no shot they're pulling this into the boss. They're pulling all of this into the boss. A Sentinel plus Scribes plus Ghouls into the boss? What? Why would you... I mean, I guess they have 50% damage, but why would you do this? This is just bonkers. If they're able to pull this off, they are going to be so far ahead, and it's going to look so good, but this is so dangerous. Once those Ghouls are alive, though, I'm pretty sure they're chilling. What is Incarnation doing in this dungeon? This is so wild.
This is actually so incredibly wild. I don't even know what's going on anymore at this point. They just doing one crazy pull after the other, and it just seems like they have to slow down eventually, but not Incarnation, not Dorky. He just keeps pulling stuff on top of the bosses, on top of the mini-bosses, on top of Varuth. This is just absolutely insane. Echo just now engaged Tarvold, and you can see Incarnation, they're already up to 73% trash. That actually, I don't think that is quite enough to go down, though. Do they have to do one more pull? Because Echo is up to 76% trash on their side, and they have some more ghouls as well. So I do think Incarnation might have to do one extra trash pull here before they go down.
Let's see what they plan on doing
here. Oh no!
I mean, if there was ever an in-game example of all gas, no brakes, it was the way that Incarnation pulled that section of the dungeon just now. That was just completely bonkers, and it's not going to stop now as we now pull 5 more mobs on top of Grand Proctor Borrelia. I mean, this is just, it doesn't stop. I was looking at Discord right before this match, and I saw Dorky saying, our Sanguine depths is kind of crazy, but it's also super volatile. If we're able to pull it off with 0 deaths, we might be able to beat Echo. So far, they only have the 1 death, and it looks like if they're able to pull that off, they'll be able to take out Echo. But there's still a lot of dungeon left. These bosses are incredibly dangerous. The gauntlet coming up is disgusting, and Growl is so low on tools here. He does have the wings coming up in a couple seconds to help top people off, but with those bursting stacks going out, there's going to be a lot of danger here. Man, they're so low right now, but Growl should be able to stabilize now.
Yeah, this is actually a really difficult boss for them because they don't have any of those usual cooldowns. You can see Echo is engaging that boss now, and they have the Ashen from Salia, they have those wings, they have the cooldowns on Gingy and Clicks as well. They have so many offensives available, and Incarnation, they have nothing. They have no Ashen, they have no Celestial Alignment on Yoda, they didn't have Junkrat's cooldowns either, so they're just somehow hinking through this boss fight without any offensives or defensives available at this point, because their previous boss room was so crazy, they had to commit everything to be able to get it done. And this is the window for Echo to actually catch up, because they have so much more offensives. And you can see that the boss is kind of melting for Echo. They still have they're still 20% behind on the boss, but they're a little bit ahead in the trash percentage. They have 5% ahead. That means Echo can skip more trash in that gauntlet later on. So this is still really close. Junkrat, unfortunately, got in combat with Sogodon. So he thankfully did realize that he was in combat. But no, they're still in combat with it. You can see the physical damage debuff on everyone. Sogodon not actually engaging them. But because Junkrat was in combat, everyone has that physical damage debuff on maybe for the whole fight even.
Yeah, it's going to be until they're out of combat. That's just generally how it works, right?
Yeah.
If they have a way to drop a combat, that can work. But I'm scared for Dorky right now. He's going to get plowed by the boss here. The boss does so much damage to tanks. There's really not a whole lot you can do about it, and they don't have their immunities up for this Rite of Supremacy here. Hopefully they can get enough orbs to not go down to the damage afterwards. Yoda dropping low, he's going to have to help off-heal a little bit here, it seems. And while all of this has been going on, Echo has been able to make up a significant amount of the advantage that Incarnation has gained themselves. They'll be killing Grand Proctor Brillia at roughly the same time as Incarnation. And Incarnation, remember, has those 2 deaths on the board, so we're going back to another neck-and-neck game here between these 2 teams. This is just absolutely wild.
Yeah, this is super crazy. You can see Incarnation, because they're missing so much trash, they actually have to do an additional trash pull here that Echo does not have to do. They're just immediately shrouding past into this gauntlet. So that means Echo is clearly ahead at this point, because they're going to be reaching that gauntlet earlier, and they also don't have they don't have any deaths actually. So they have 0 deaths on the board, 10 seconds in favor of Echo. So now again, all eyes on Echo as they're gathering up this first initial trash pull with General Call.
Yep, and there's the trash on the board, 84% tied with Echo. Now they'll be able to move on to the gauntlet, but while they're traveling to the boss, Echo have already dealt with most of the trash in that pull. The bursting sacks are just now coming out on top of the group. Zaylee's going to have to make sure he tops everyone else off. Now, the one major advantage for Incarnation that they still hold over Echo right now is their Ashen Hollow is off cooldown. Growl could pop it here should he choose to, but he's only going to get probably only 1 more use of that left in the dungeon, so it's really not too crazy of an advantage. Zaylee's going to have his available in the next minute or so. So I think they're both going to be saving that for the final 70 to 50% burn of the boss with trash. The question that I have in my mind, has Incarnation adapted to the thing that we saw from Reload Esports, where they pull the remainder of the trash in with the trash you pull on top of the final boss like we saw Reload Esports do? And if they're able to pull that off, will that be enough to make up the gap?
Yeah, I'm not sure. At this point, they're just both holding those cooldowns for that last boss with those lantern buffs, as you mentioned. And you can see Echo already getting General Call to that 80% mark. They also are right next to the lantern. Incarnation now there as well. If they can catch up a little bit on that single target damage and manage to push Kyle a bit earlier, then it might be making up a little bit of time. It's still incredibly close between those 2 teams. You can see now just running ahead, gathering all of the trash they still have left to do, and he's going to be kiting it backwards into that lantern in just a second. Incarnation are going to be doing the same thing. At this point, Dorky just has to run and gather that trash, but Kyle is still not pushed. They have to make sure Kyle gets pushed. You see Dorky's just wanting to pull more trash, but they're just missing a little bit of single target here. Echo already gathered all of that trash into the lantern just now. They're going to be getting all of those stacks in just a second, and then they're going to be running into the boss, using all of those offensives they've left, and the boss is going to be dying so quickly.
I mean, this is nowhere near over yet. Echo does currently have a significant advantage, but we've seen how volatile and how difficult this final boss can be when you pull all the trash on top of it. All eyes are right now are going to be on Echo, as they have finally now finished off that final General Call phase. Call is being spawned right now. They get 1 final refresh of that lantern buff to make sure that they have as long of a buff as possible, doing 50% increased damage and healing, and they are now making their way towards that final encounter of the dungeon, where they will be playing for the first seed. If they're able to take this dungeon, they will be our #1 seed from this bracket.
Keep in mind, this last boss is not going to be easy though for them because they have the 50% physical damage increase plus a 50% slow, which is just so dangerous for this. You can see now dropping incredibly low, actually proccing his cheat death here that he thankfully still had available for himself. But you can see there's just so much stuff going on at the same time. You have the Sentinel casting the Swirlies on the ground. You have all of those bursting stacks going off at the same time. All of the defensives had to be committed already. Cloak, Bubble, and Ice Block. Everything has been used, and all of the Dwarf Rachels as well to get rid of those bursting stacks. And now you're gonna get those charges out, which are gonna do so much damage. You can see one on Celia and one on Gingy, and it's just this ticking damage gonna do so much because of the Tormentor debuff.
Nagura, is Echo missing count? They're at 98%.
They are missing count.
We have to keep an eye on that. They'll be able to pull a bat after the fact to get the rest of that count, but Incarnation has just now gone into their pull. Everything is active. The Bloodlust pop, Ashen Hollow and Wings down. General Call dropping incredibly low. They're going to be catching up to Echo a little bit here because they still have that Lantern buff active and their Bloodlust active, but keep in mind, Echo do still need to deal with trash, whereas Incarnation has their 100% trash. But just one more thing, the 10-second death differential is going to be a major factor. Once Echo deals with General Call here, they have to go back into the hallway and find, I believe, one of the vampire bats that flies around and single target that down. That is a major oversight for them, and if they're not able to find one quickly due to control timings, that's going to be a big deal for them.
Yeah, definitely. Look at Echo, and they have to go through this RP as well. They're stunned. They can't do anything. They just have to wait until they get down. And now they're gonna have to find that trash. You see, everyone is running backwards. They're gonna have to find that bat, and maybe if it's a bad patrol, they mightn't even get it immediately. You can see they're just like panically trying to look for it. They're just running backwards. There's still that trash in the hallway, but Incarnation, they're getting closer and closer to the boss. Again, 10 seconds in favor of Echo. So Echo actually does have 10 extra seconds after Incarnation kills that boss, but it's taking them so long to actually find any trash. They're just running, desperately trying to find some trash, but it's such a long run back to them to get there. General Call dropping lower and lower for Incarnation.
Is the team that pulled the boss first going to lose every single map in this dungeon? The boss is down for Incarnation. Stop the clock. 10 seconds on the board. Echo needs to kill one of these trash mobs in the next 10 seconds, or this is going to be the series for Incarnation, and that's it. The timer is gone. Incarnation has taken this series and this tournament over Echo 2-1. Oh my god, what a debut for this squad.
Oh, you can just see the frustration there by Gingy as they unfortunately do lose the series to Incarnation. And I know what it's been like to just miss one little trash percentage and not be able to finish that dungeon. That's just got to feel so terrible for Echo as they fall to Incarnation, who just pulled off some incredibly risky strategies and we're just constantly tanking so many mobs in so many dangerous situations, and they will be our Group C champions here from Sanguine Depths with a